Hello there. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Journalists Hangout. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Today on the program, federal government offers pardon to inmates who voluntarily return to Imo Correctional Facility as new IG vows to tackle banditry, kidnapping and insurgency. CJN tells striking judiciary workers that he can't beg governors to implement financial autonomy. And later on the show, Chelsea, PSG earn Champions League away wins. I will be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Dotun Oladipo, while Promise Efoge joins us for the sports segment later on. Journalists Hangout. The federal government says it will fish out and deal ruthlessly with those behind the attack on the correctional center and police headquarters in Owerri, the Imo State capital. Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola disclosed this while assessing the level of destruction by unknown gunmen at the facility on Monday. Mr. Aregbesola says fugitives who escaped from the custodial center in Owerri, Imo State, will be pardoned if they voluntarily return. In the meantime, Acting Inspector General of Police Usman Alkali Baba says he will confront increasingly complex and pervasive security threats in the country. Welcome to Journalists Hangout once again on TVC News. As I also welcome my guests. From my left, I have Dotun Oladipo. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. And I also have Babajide Kolade Otitoju. BKO, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start from the rear. The promise by the newly decorated Acting Inspector General of Police to not disappoint Nigerians. Now, as a former member of management, before his assumption of office, yes, is he talking from experience or out of lack of acknowledgement of the challenges that are confronting him? Is it just, the enthusiasm that comes from having assumed office as, the new Acting Inspector General of Police? BQ.
Enthusiasm, yes, that will happen, and Nigerians will expect you to offer hope to them. If you fail to offer hope, they are not going to be happy with you. A lot of our people are really despondent at this time. They can't understand why security has collapsed in our country. They can't understand why gunmen are running riot and getting away with their activities. So when you have a new sheriff in town, like Alkali Baba at this time, people will expect him to offer hope. That's the best that he can do at this time. Then, of course, everyone has his own approach to issues. Every IG had a character of his own. A character now used in singular terms. Every IG had his own nature, which will reflect in the way that he goes about doing his job. For example, the last IG was particularly keen about community policing. A lot of the progress that we made in the area of community policing, we didn't make before we got onto the scene. Although people will argue that community policing itself, the need for it was triggered by the failure of the police to adequately secure Nigerians. But it's not the police alone that has failed. The armed forces, the entire armed forces, have failed to protect the Nigerian people. So it's unfair to simply blame it all on the police. I don't think any of the armed forces could cover itself in glory, given what has happened in the last few years. So he is suffering hope, and I'm sure he has his own ideas as to how to get the job done. He will be his own person. He won't be like the man who used to be there. That's why the late Mama Vasa said, every man is different because every man is himself. Yeah. So it's going to show that this is me, these are the things that I believe in, and it will really show in the way we get about the job. We just promise Nigerians that they should expect changes. I just hope that these are not empty promises. We want to see changes in practical terms, not just in terms of reeling out what ought to be done. People want to see concrete steps taken, and they want to see those steps begin to bear fruits. For now, Nigerians can't be comfortable about the security situation except the hypocritical hailers of everything government. No sensible person can claim that we are well secure at this time, can claim that things are good the way they are security-wise, except someone who clearly has lost the capacity to please his conscience.
Or to even reason. Now, Dotson, is it offering hope, in the words of Babajide Otitoju, and quoting him yet again, if the armed forces have failed to cover itself in glory, what can the new IG do differently?
Well, one of the things we've always complained about in the country is intelligence-led policing or security. We are always reacting. We are not proactive. Things happen, then we begin to run in that direction. When you look at what happened in Nimo, there had been build up to it. That's the major one. Before then, some stations had been attacked. In Ebonyi, it also happened. And then the big one happened in Nimo. You are now deploying the intelligence-led arm of the police, as led by the intelligence response team, with Deputy Commissioner of Police Abakiari in charge. It's then we are now deploying that team. It doesn't hang together. If there has been a build-up, why is it that you did not go in to check what is happening? Even after that, one still happened yesterday. A police station was attacked again. So it means those who are carrying out this act, you've not been able to identify them. So for me, I think acting IG Baba should be able to at least bring his own experience as part of that intelligence-led team within the force, coming from the FCID, Force Criminal Investigation Department. He should be able to bring something to the table. Okay. Because what we have always... an
investigation team before,
yes,
yeah.
What we have always been talking about is, can we stop it before it happens? If we can't stop it before it happens, can we use a particular situation to stop other ones from happening? I hope, because this is where it's going to start from, that the attack in Nimo yesterday will be the last. If any other one happens, then we'll begin to question his credentials. Because it doesn't hang together that the same situation repeats itself. And then we are now telling criminals, please come back. They won't. The jailbreaks that we had in Benin during the NSAS protests, where are those people? They are still on the streets. In fact, the day some of them were released, we heard that one of them snatched the car right there in Benin. Another one in Lagos. So you are asking people who are hardened to now walk back and come and say, here I am, hold me again. We can do better than that.
We'll go back to Acting Inspector General, but thank you for the lead into the promise by the Minister of Interior that those who, escaped should return. Babajide, is that good enough motivation? Would they return to the correctional center?
Some will return, and some of them have returned already.
Some of them have.
More than 80 have returned already, but we are talking about almost 2,000 people let loose.
Yeah.
And you have such a negligible number voluntarily going back to the slammer, then it's not encouraging. You see, a lot of them are hardened criminals, a lot of them are terrorists, a lot of them are murderers. It will be difficult for such category of criminals to go back to the slammer, because they know the implications. Some of them are actually going to be tried for murder, and they know the implication. If you are found guilty, you get killed. So they would not want to come back. And we've seen after the NSAS protest that was hijacked, you've seen criminals who are in detention go back to their places of origin to kill those that they accused of testifying against them, to put them in prison. So it's a dangerous situation that we have on our hands. And I see some people appearing to support these elements who are attacking police stations, attacking other government buildings. Boko Haram started in this manner, and there were a few people who thought Boko Haram were behaving like freedom fighters because they felt that they were doing some of the things that they wanted. At a point, Boko Haram was attacking churches. And to some religious extremists, it was a welcome idea. But when Boko Haram saw clearly that Nigerians were not going to get involved in a religious war against one another, they started killing Muslims. They started killing even prominent Muslims. General Shua, a Nigerian war hero, was murdered in his house. And so many others, they killed many clerics who preached against them. So nobody knows where this will end. Even some of the people who support them may become victims of the atrocities if they are not careful. You know, no one knows where this will end. So it's foolhardy to begin to see them as doing something right. Terrorism cannot be a welcome idea.
Can't justify.
No one should use terrorism to achieve an aim. You can use lawful means to achieve your aims, but by the time you resort to terrorism, it makes no sense at all, and innocent people get killed. So how can any rational human being justify the killing of innocent people in the name of trying to achieve an aim? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And that's why the philosopher said, unfortunately, in all wars, those who die are those who do not deserve to die. Many people who do not deserve to die are getting killed in the name of agitation for either Biafra or whatever. Terrorism in any guise has to be condemned. So I will advise our people to think twice. Boko Haram started like this. We warned, but some people felt at that time that it was right, since they had not begun to attack them. But by the time they began to attack them, they actually killed more of them than the people they were killing in the beginning. You know? So this is the thing. At the beginning, you may never be able to predict where it will all end. So we are seeing the beginning of a disturbing attack on police formations in the southeast, especially Ebonyi, where we've had about 6 attacks on police formations, including the police headquarters, between January and now, you know, and it appears to be spreading. Nobody knows where this whole thing will end. And we should deny them the support that they desperately want. We should deny them. This is not the right thing to do, to opening fire on innocent people and releasing hardened criminals into
the society.
Yes.
And this is where I'm headed, gentlemen. The social malaise that is unleashed on the society, you know, is the leadership in denial of the fact that perhaps these are some of the factors fueling increased banditry, increased rape, increased murder on local communities? You know, the fact that in the past few years we've seen a number of jailbreaks.
Yeah, you can't run away from that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what is going to happen. Babajide just mentioned one. Some of those people were free. They went back into their community to deal with those they believed worked against them. We've had, I mean, people who know their own terrain, they will always return to where they know to go and wreak further havoc. For instance, if I don't stay in Lagos, I don't understand the way Lagos works, it's going to be difficult for me to operate. So they are going to first go back into their community, make some money, or get enough funds to move out, if they ever will. Because even at some point, those who are in the local community will be scared to even provide further information to security agencies, knowing that if this guy goes again, he can come back to deal with me. So we can't run away from the effect, the after effect of what is happening now. And if we allow it to continue, just the way Boko Haram got strengthened, got emboldened, and went from attacking policemen to attacking military formations, that is what is going to happen. Now it's just the police stations they are facing. Very soon you hear it's the office of the DSS. You hear it's the army barracks. You hear it's the Nigeria Air Force. It's going to keep spreading. It's just a matter of, now we have done it to the police. We have succeeded. So let's try our luck elsewhere. And once it gets to this point, nobody is safe.
Nobody is safe. Nobody is safe.
Because if a police station is not, then I don't see how you can say media houses. How many policemen do you have guarding some of those places? Sometimes none. So not to talk of home of individuals. It's a serious situation.
It's and really then also, unsettling, you know, when you think about it.
We should add to it. We are complaining that there is low morale in the force. And that people, especially the police, and that people are now unwilling to enlist, that is to join the force. With the way we are going, do you think we are going to get more people to go into the police?
I was going to head to that topic, but we're running out of time. But it's something to also think about. You know, the former Inspector General of Police, or former rather, had talked about the need to recruit 133,000 men into the police force. We hope that this acting Inspector General of Police will make headway with that particular aspect of strengthening the Nigeria police force.
The case. The police and the regulatory bodies for the police, they are in court over who has the power to recruit. So until that matter is resolved, no fresh recruitment can take place.
Even the 10,000 that has been
no fresh recruitment. And every day policemen are dying.
They are dying.
Policemen are retiring. Policemen are quitting the job. Yet we are unable to recruit more
into the VIP list.
We are unable to recruit, to even replace those who are leaving. It's such a sad scenario. We don't have enough policemen to police our country. We don't have enough soldiers to police our country. We are just it's like we are just relying on God to save us.
Well, would rather it would profit us to do what we can instead of relying on God. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, CJN, Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, says he cannot reach out to all 36 state governors to ask them to implement financial autonomy for the judiciary. President Muhammadu Buhari had, in May 2020, granted financial autonomy to the legislature and the judiciary across the 36 states of the Federation, giving powers to the Accountants General of the Federation to deduct amounts due state legislature and judiciary from any state's monthly allocation if it refuses to grant such autonomy. However, governors are yet to implement this executive order. I'd like to come to you first of all, Dotson, to have your say on this. What are the governors afraid of?
Is it what they are afraid of or what the reality is on ground? When that executive order was signed, everybody liked it. But those who are realists knew it wasn't going to work. Because you look at some states, even what they generate internally and what they get from the federation accounts can't even pay their workers. There is always a conflict of interest. As we speak, doctors are on strike. They want money. Polytechnic lecturers are on strike. They want money. Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria on strike. They want money. So, federal government can't raise enough money. State governments can't raise enough money. How do you meet all of these needs? It was obvious when that thing was signed that it was only going to be on paper. It's not implementable. Because a state governor who has not even found enough money to pay workers, and then you now say you want to deduct for the judiciary. That's why all this talk about restructuring. We are missing it because we are only looking at certain aspects that people are using to engineer fear in us.
But then, Doctor, are state governors prioritizing state needs? For instance, some governors are embarking on airport projects when, you know, there is the pressing need to build capacity in their states.
I agree with you. There are some like that. But at the time you are looking at some of those projects, when you look at most of the governors, they are borrowing to fund those projects. They are not using money from the federation account and IGR to fund them. What they are relying on now is to pay salaries and all the rest is what comes from the federation account and the IGR. Because any governor, as we speak now, not even Lagos, can say without borrowing, I'll be able to do a major project. Look at the projects that have been done in Lagos. The flyover in Penn Cinema, the modification of roundabouts all over Lagos Island and the rest, Allen Junction. Can you fund it from federation accounts allocation? Can you fund it from IGR? It's almost impossible. And that is the issue where we now have to go back and say, look, let us isolate the germane issues when we are talking about restructuring. What are the germane issues? State police. The judiciary is important. The so-called national minimum wage. There have been arguments over all of these things.
Some states are
Somebody who stays in Lagos spends 500,000 to rent a two-bedroom flat. Somebody in Ekiti spends 50,000 or 100,000 to rent a two-bedroom flat. And you want to be earning the same salary. We've had this argument over and over. But when workers want to go on the attack, they don't bring all of those things to the table. What they bring to the table, they are jaundiced positions. We should be looking at these critical issues. As we speak now, you are saying deduct from source, pay the judiciary. If the governors should do that, and the other arms of the same workforce can't get their salary, what happens? They will go on strike.
They'll go on strike as well.
We have to look at these things and isolate them when we talk about restructuring. Security, you cannot leave it at that federal level. Wages, you can't leave it at that federal level. There are things that states should begin to address. Any executive order from the federal will fail.
Sounds like a valid point. Let's quickly come to BKO. Do you agree that it's the same realities that are on ground, or you have different sentiments?
I disagree. I disagree seriously, sir. You see, when the president gave that executive order 10 of the year 2020, I was happy, and I spoke about the gains that will come from allowing that to happen. You see, the president didn't just take a decision. The Constitution already guarantees autonomy for the legislature and the judiciary. Any governor who is against autonomy, financial autonomy for the judiciary is committing constitutional sacrilege. And such governors even deserve to go to jail later on. What we are suffering from is clearly the unpatriotic nature of governors, extremely selfish nature of governors. They want to take over the running of the parties, their parties. Some of them were nobodies before they became governors. Well, they become governors now, they want to totally take over their parties because they are saying that they are the ones who are running the parties, funding the parties. In any case, largely state funds that they are using to fund parties. It's not their own money. That's a matter for another day.
Okay, hold the thought there, BKO. It's time for a break on Journalists Hangout. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. It's Journalists Hangout on TVC News, the Thursday edition. And during the first segment, we have looked at issues relating to security, particularly the call by the Minister of Interior on those who escaped from the Imo Correctional Center to return in exchange for a pardon. And also we've progressed to the topic on the striking judiciary workers, particularly the position by the CJN that he can't force governors to implement financial autonomy for judiciary and the legislature. Yes, BKO, you were talking about the need for control by the governors, yes.
The CJN said they will not beg them, which is the right way for any judicial officer to speak. If you beg anyone for anything, beg the executive for anything, then even your independence, you are compromising it. The governors, when the president gave the executive order, the governors sought an audience with the president, and I was wondering, what for? Why did you have to see the president? All over the world, presidents take big decisions through executive orders. And in this case, the Constitution guarantees that financial autonomy. In fact, Justice Ademola, the retired Justice Ademola, because soon the Judiciary Workers Union did not start this battle today. They went to court, got judgment. They got judgment that financial autonomy of the judiciary should be implemented. So, for me, if I were in the shoes of the CJN and other big people in the judiciary, this is a simple matter to resolve. That judgment has not been appealed. The governors know that if they waste their time to appeal that judgment, they will lose 1,000,000 times. So they are not addressing that issue legally. Instead, what they went to do was simply to go and pile pressure on Mr. President over a matter that they should have left to the courts. The Constitution is clear. That autonomy is already enshrined in the Constitution. It's just that we are a nation where illegality thrives. Otherwise, every year you have your budget, the judiciary ought to get its funds directly as a first-line charge. You have no business. The executive has no business so pretending the funds of the judiciary. And it got to a head.
The concern of lack of finances that Dotun talked about.
No, that's not it. So how are they able to pay salaries of judicial workers? How are they able to build gigantic judicial complexes? Have you seen some gigantic complexes that governors have built? Is it not from the same funds? I mean, budgets are done every year. You come up with what the judiciary needs to spend in a given year, what the legislature needs to spend in a given year. And then you let them spend their funds. In Lagos State here, the legislature has financial autonomy. Find out. So if they have it, are they superior to the judiciary? Are we saying some of the people in Lagos judiciary there are not better people than them in the judiciary? How are they able to have judicial autonomy? Because governors in Lagos realized that they needed to give them legislative autonomy so that the state can be better run, function well. And both tiers of government will enjoy working with one another and have mutual respect. But in this case, they are hitting their heads against the wall and saying, no, they don't want. What for? Once in every year you sit down, the way it is, the judiciary will go before the National Assembly to defend his budget. The governor of Kogi State even took the thing to a ridiculous extent some time ago, when because a decision was taken that I didn't like. Dino Melaye was granted bail by the late Chief Judge. What did the governor do? He refused to release funds meant for the judiciary for about a year or so. Is that right? And then they took him to court and he lost the election. I mean, the matter in court. What was the judgment? The judgment was that you have no right. You have no right to sit over the funds meant for the judiciary. That's what the Constitution dictates. So why is it impossible for us to implement the letters of the Constitution? We will never be a great country if we are selective in the implementation of the letters of our Constitution. So 2 cases now affirming the primacy of the financial autonomy of the judiciary. 2 cases. Justice Ademola, the retired Justice Ademola, and then Kogi State, Justice Alaba Ajilaye. When the Kogi State governor lost that matter, I said, release their funds. You have no right
to withhold their funds
by the Constitution to release their funds. So what they are even asking for is not something new. It's there in the Constitution. They are just asking, implement the letters of the Constitution. Just soon, how many times are these guys going to fight over this before we do what's right? There's no, this every year, it's not as if they are owing. Okay, now, look at a governor, a Cross River State governor. You heard what he has done. He refused to pay magistrates. Google the story and see how ridiculous we have become in our country. He refused to pay magistrates. Dozens of magistrates unpaid.
Your position on Babajide's reaction. No. We have a caller on the line. Let's take this caller first. They've been waiting for some time. Good evening.
My name is Ken Kokes and I call from Imo State.
Okay, you're welcome.
You see, I want to talk on the Imo attack. You see, it is worrisome. But that is why most of us pleaded with the governors from the southeast that we must be proactive instead of being reactive. You know, when the Yorubas at some point were busy coming together, putting self-glorification and aggrandizement aside, putting political interest aside, they came together to form Amotekun for the good growth and development of their people. For that primary sole aim of also responsibility of government, which is securing lives and properties of the people. Our governors from the southeast were playing politics with it. When the IGP came around here, when they hired the meeting, they did not agree. But look at all those things we've been crying that are happening in the north, in the south, in southwest. It now is not here with us. You see, what happened in Imo State was so unfortunate, and it could have been avoided. We are appealing to the conscience of my state governor. Let us have. You see, government is a continuum. Former Governor Rocha Sokorocha, no matter how he did not perform, maybe how we did not like his style of leadership, but the issue of security, he had what we call Imo Security Network and the other one. Why couldn't we sustain this thing?
Thank you very much, Nkem, for your contribution, your insightful contribution there. And I believe Dr. had also said that they should have been proactive rather than reactive, particularly in the response to the security challenges in Imo State. Now, back to our topic on the striking judiciary workers.
Yes, I'm not saying that his position is wrong. That's the Constitution. But what we are saying is, what is the reality on ground? Some of these governors, absolutely wrong. But when it comes to the reality on ground, for instance, a state like Osun State, a state like Ogun, a state like Ondo, with huge debts hanging. By the time money is coming from the federation account, it's already gone. Fine, there is a budget.
But how do they?
But how do you implement that budget?
How do they meet up with, payment of salaries in the first place?
And
that's the concern that BKO is talking about. And I was even going to ask you that, is it justifiable to borrow to fund capital projects while the personnel suffers?
Well, it's a whole lot, like I've said, that we require to look at. Not just because when you talk about some of these things, the governors will tell you that when you go and check some reports, they even bring in labor into the sharing formula for what they receive from the federation account and what they have. Okay, labor will say, this is bad though. Let's do it this way, let's do it that way. That's the situation in which we have found ourselves. So it makes it difficult meeting financial obligations across board. Across board. And that is why the way things can be can be properly done is to look at it wholesale. How many workers do we really need? Can labor allow states to decide on that? How many of these do we need? What are the projects that we are handling?
The issue is that they don't have money.
That's going to troubled waters.
The issue is not that they don't even have money to pay judiciary workers and to carry out capital projects on behalf of the judiciary. The issue is they want to continue to control those funds. There are governors in this country who continue to spend allocations for local governments in the name of so-called joint account committee.
Yes.
These are the things that need to be addressed. And I know governors in this same country who will never touch one kobo of local government funds. I can mention some of them. Now. So how are they able to do it? It's just a question.
That's a valid question.
It's just a question of governors believing that, look, let us continue to be in charge of this money. It's not a question of, they don't have enough money. No, that's not the issue. No. It's not a question of that they don't have enough money. And I'm saying that, look, if you can pay, the judiciary has to have its budget. And every year they have their budget. But the difference is the executive takes charge
of the budget,
of all things that have to do with the finances of the judiciary. You go, you plan, you say, okay, this is what the judiciary will spend in a given year. It should not be you. You are planned. It should not be you pretending over the budget, over their funds. The Constitution makes it clear. Any governor doing that, especially those of them who are lawyers by training, know in their hearts that they are committing constitutional sacrilege, because it is clear the Constitution demands that this should happen. And I've mentioned the fact that 2 cases, and they've not appealed any of those cases. I challenge anyone
because they know they are going to lose.
Yes, then why don't you just go ahead? You see, I blame the judiciary.
I have a question about the overall impact of this, if it is granted, on democracy. But we have Gabriel from Yola. Good evening, Gabriel. Gabriel, I hope you're still there. We're sorry we held you on for a little bit. Yes, good evening, Gabriel.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. You see, I think there is no reason to justify why governors will continue to hold the funds made for either the judiciary or the legislators. Now, the thing is, we need to challenge this at the highest court. I think the federal government, if they are serious on this, they need to take this to the Supreme Court and let us test the law. And let us see any governor that will subsequently disobey that judgment. Federal government can as well seal their allocations, because as it is now, you are breaching a federal law, constitutional provision. Yes. Governors are breaching it. And unfortunately, the federal government seems not to be doing anything about it. They're not taking action. So we should talk to our federal officials, and they should test this issue in the highest court. Let us see. Let there be a judicial pronouncement to that. Thank you.
The law already grants Section 121.
They did not appeal the matter. They lost and they refused to appeal. Governors were sued by JUSUM. JUSUM wants autonomy. They are asking for it. Governors were sued and they lost, and they did not appeal. It's not, you will just waste the time of the court if you appeal, because you will lose.
It's still the same judgment.
Now they are now using political means to ensure that this is not implemented. What the president said when he gave that order was that now that the Accountant General of the Federation will be directed to pay directly to the registrar of the judiciary in any given state where this has not been allowed to happen. Why can't the president go ahead and implement that?
But you know, it's also the same thing with the local governments. That's also the
let's just limit ourselves to this. We are saying that there are governors who don't touch local government funds. There are governors. But there are governors too in our country that once the allocation to federal government, the local government comes, that is where they go. We know now. I even remember a local government chairman who burst into tears because what was given to him was so small. And there are local government chairmen who had confronted governors in this country and they were fired. Meanwhile, they have no power to do it. You have no right to remove a local government chairman from office. You know? So this is the thing. We've seen governors who sack CJ in their state and they don't have the power. Bukola Saraki did it in Kwara now. He sacked Justice Elelu. She won the case later on, but it took so long before the matter was decided. They are doing a lot of things that they don't have power to do. And so our country permits this kind of abnormalities.
So if financial autonomy is granted the judiciary, would it be farewell to this excessive control and influence of court judgments that is not favorable to governors?
In a way to help it, in a way. Okay. Remember what Donald Duke said back then. Judges will come, they transfer a judge to a state. They will first go and beg, okay, please, can I have accommodation? How are you going to assist me? They don't need to go to you. They'll use their funds to better their lots. So there are many reasons why we should let this happen. And people need to talk to those governors to stop playing the emperor, to stop playing God, and let reason prevail. You'll be in control of everything. You want to control political parties. You want to control funds that are not supposed to even be touched by you. So this is the thing.
So we must leave it there. Yeah. This is Journalist Hangout on TVC News. We'll take a break now. When we return, it will be time to look at what's happening in the world of sports. Stay with us.
Against Atalanta, but now PSG open, Bayern up. And it's straight Mbappe and Neymar, and they seem almost caught in two minds, Bayern.
They did, and I think
unselfish switch by Neymar, I think, Martin, but we took...
He wanted, but it goes through the goalkeeper, through his legs.
Cross, not quite on the money. Here's Marquinhos. He controlled it, and it was all weathers, all competitions. The true elite in the eye, and in the latter part of the decade...
Gives him the time to pick his spot.
Brilliant legwork. Kylian Mbappe scored twice as Paris Saint-Germain produced a superb away performance to beat title holders Bayern Munich in a thrilling Champions League quarter-final first leg. Chelsea bounced back from a testy few days to earn a commanding first leg quarter-final away win over Porto in the Champions League. It is advantage to Chelsea and PSG ahead of the second leg. That's where we're headed now on the program as I welcome our sports editor, Promise Afoge. Welcome to Journalist Hangout.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. And BKO is still very much in the house. We thank Dotsun Oladipo for joining us, and he's taking his leave. So as I start off, Promise, Bayern beat PSG last time. This time PSG is winning. What are the implications of this?
Well, I think it's not Uhuru yet. PSG knows that. Both sides met in the finals of the Champions League last season. It was a close call. Bayern won that encounter 1-0. It was a close shave, and we saw this coming. Both sides meeting in the quarterfinal. It was more like a final before the final. For PSG, it was about the time to revenge. You know, what they suffered a couple of months ago. We saw Neymar return. He created 2 assists on that occasion. The assist to Marquinhos and the first goal that Mbappe scored. He was important for the team. PSG, yeah, on the league, on the domestic front in France, they've been epileptic in terms of performances under the new coach, Pochettino. But the Champions League brings a different balls, a different life entirely. And the PSG we saw against Bayern was different from the one we saw that lost to Lille Metropole in the league a few days ago. So
do you
but
see
I still think the tie isn't over yet. Bayern are defending champions. Bayern are arguably the best team in Europe. What they suffered on the 9th, I would say, was a blip. They actually dominated that game. They had more of the possession. They had more shots on target. I think they were pretty unlucky. They hit the post a couple of times, you know. And they are a team that can score goals away from home. And it's not over yet.
But do you see PSG emerging as the favorite with this performance?
Are they favorites? I would say yes and no. They are favorites because they have the lead. 3 goals away from home is not a small thing. You know, they can capitalize on it. They go back to France, put up a very superb defensive performance, play any kind of draw, they are through. But the Bayern, we know, are a team that can score whether at home or away from home. It all depends on who scores the most, you know.
So, BKO, do you have similar thoughts on the PSG performance?
The test for Bayern will be whether they can keep the attack of PSG from scoring. It's extremely difficult because having had that advantage, having won 3-2 away from home, away goals count double. Any goal scored by PSG will make matters worse. They are chasing the game. So they've got to stop PSG from scoring. And that will be very difficult. Yes, Bayern, they are a very strong side, but they are not as good as last season. They were very dominant last season. And even last season, as good as they were, they struggled to beat PSG by 1-0. And it was a painful night for PSG because they also had chances to score on the day. That was why Neymar was inconsolable at the end of the final whistle. So, as Romney said, the tie is not decided yet, and we've seen all kinds of crazy games in the Champions League when you think that a team has a tie sewn up, the second leg comes, and they turn things around. So, Bayern, given their performance, I was impressed with their performance, except the goal scoring side of things, because they created so many chances, up to more than 30 chances.
And they could create more chances in the second leg if Lewandowski returns.
If they had Lewandowski, if they had Lewandowski yesterday, I don't think they would have lost the game. If they had Gnabry, the former Arsenal player, I don't think they would have lost the game. So to lose their 2 most consistent scorers was tough to take.
It was a setback.
You know, so this match is still in the balance. Just the same way I see Dortmund and Man City, because Dortmund too created many chances on the day and then lost narrowly to a last-minute goal. So with such a situation, you can expect anything in the second leg.
I'm actually scared for City anyways.
Okay, now let's go to Chelsea. So what would you say about Chelsea's performance?
The Porto coach said his team deserved more than the 2-0 defeat. Unfortunately for them, it's a home game for them, but the game wasn't played in Portugal. It was played in Seville, Spain, and so it was more like a neutral ground for both sides. Chelsea, it was a good way to bounce back from that Premier League loss to West Bromwich Albion. I thought they were going to respond to that. No one saw them cracking at the bridge against West Bromwich Albion, a team struggling against relegation in the Premier League. And it was also a show that Thomas Tuchel, the coach, is not a man who knows it all. And so he's learned his lessons. Against Porto, they took all their chances. They had more of the ball. You know, the best way to keep your opponent at bay is to stab them off the ball, and that's what Chelsea did. At Stamford Bridge, I don't think Porto has a chance. They don't have a chance. So for me, I think the Chelsea-Porto game is decided.
Yes, I think that tie is decided. When I looked at the teams in the quarterfinals, I concluded in my head that Porto was the weakest of all the teams because they were lucky to overcome Juventus. Now, they face Chelsea. Chelsea has shown they said to be the superior team, so I expect Chelsea to go through. I think that Thomas Tuchel has done a good job, and by giving Rhys James the opportunity at right back or right wing back, he has invested his faith in young players, and I think that those young players are repaying his faith in them. You can see the Mason Mount also played well, got a goal, and Ben Chilwell as well. Right? I think Chelsea has got all it takes to qualify for the next stage. It's Liverpool that I have fears for. Having lost the first leg 3-1, everyone knows that Real Madrid plays excellently in the Champions League. You know, having lost the first leg 3-1, unable to register a shot on goal, I don't think Liverpool will go
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Some say Chelsea is home and dry, but some say that anything can happen. You should expect an upset in the second leg. Thank you very much, Professor Foge, our sports editor, and Babajide Kolade-Ositoju. Thank you very much for being on the program. That's all on Journalist Hangout today. Join us tomorrow for another edition of the program. But don't forget to join Journalist Hangout on Sunday from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.